The first time I saw him, I couldn't breathe. It wasn't just because the air in the charity gala was thick with perfume and champagne, or because my too tight uniform was cutting into my ribs as I balanced a tray of flutes. It was him, standing alone in a sea of wealth, watching everything but being watched by everyone. I'd been working double shifts at the catering company for 3 months to help pay off my father's medical bills. Tonight was supposed to be like any other, invisible in my black and white uniform, floating between guests like a ghost, collecting empty glasses and offering full ones. Nobody ever saw me. Not really. But he did. I felt his gaze before I saw him. A prickling sensation at the base of my neck, like the air before a lightning storm. When I turned, there he was across the room, tall, broad-shouldered, impeccably dressed in a suit that probably cost more than my yearly rent. Dark hair, slicked back from a face that belonged on a Renaissance painting, all sharp angles and perfect proportions. But it was his eyes that held me. Obsidian, calculating, dangerous. "Glasses, Olivia. We need more glasses," my supervisor hissed as she passed, breaking the spell. I hurried toward the kitchen, feeling his stare burn into my back. Who was he? Not that it mattered. Men like him didn't exist in my world except to be served and forgotten. But as I pushed through the swinging doors into the kitchen's fluorescent chaos, I couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted in my universe. 3 hours later, my feet were screaming in the cheap service shoes, and my lower back ached from smiling and bending and balancing. The crowd had thinned, the donations collected, the speeches given. I was clearing a table near the terrace when a woman in diamonds laughed too loudly and knocked her hand against my tray. Crystal shattered. Champagne splashed across the marble floor, and across Italian leather shoes worth more than everything I owned. "I'm so sorry," I gasped, dropping to my knees, frantically gathering glass shards with trembling fingers. "Leave it." His voice was like gravel wrapped in silk. I looked up, and there he was, the man from across the room, now towering over me. Behind him stood another man, broad and expressionless, scanning the area continuously. A bodyguard. "I'm so sorry, sir," I repeated, mortified. "Please let me—" I said, "Leave it." He extended a hand, large, strong, with a heavy gold signet ring on his pinky finger. "You're bleeding." I hadn't even noticed the cut on my palm where a glass shard had sliced me. A thin line of crimson was blooming across my skin. He pulled me to my feet with effortless strength, keeping hold of my wrist as he examined the cut. His touch sent electricity up my arm, and I couldn't tell if it was fear or something else that made my pulse race beneath his fingers. "Marco," he said without looking away from me. The bodyguard immediately produced a pristine white handkerchief. "What's your name?" "Olivia," I whispered, wondering why my name suddenly sounded different in my own ears. "Olivia," he repeated as if tasting it. "I'm Alexander Vega." He wrapped the handkerchief around my palm with surprising gentleness, his fingers brushing against my skin with deliberate slowness. I'd never seen a man like him bandage anything. Surely he had people to handle such mundane tasks. Yet here he was, tying a perfect knot over my insignificant wound. "Thank you, Mr. Vega," I managed, painfully aware of how close he stood, the subtle scent of his cologne, sandalwood and something darker I couldn't name. "Alexander," he corrected, still holding my bandaged hand. His thumb traced small circles over my wrist, just above my pulse point. "My hotel is hosting a charity dinner next week. I want you there." It wasn't a question. I blinked in confusion. I don't work for the hotel, sir. I'm just with the catering service." A slight smile curved his lips, not quite reaching his eyes. "I'm not asking you to work it, Olivia. I'm inviting you to attend it." My supervisor appeared at my elbow, her face a mask of professional deference that couldn't quite hide her shock. "Mr. Vega, sir. I apologize for the disturbance." "No disturbance." His eyes never left mine. "I was just telling Olivia about our event next Friday. The Renaissance Hotel, 8 o'clock. A car will pick you up." I started to protest. "Your address?" He finally released my hand to pull out his phone. Something in his expectant stare made me recite my apartment address automatically, despite every warning bell ringing in my head. Who accepts invitations from strange men, especially ones who commanded rather than asked? Perfect. He slipped his phone away. Until Friday, Olivia. With a final look that seemed to pierce right through me, he turned and walked away, the bodyguard falling into step behind him. The crowd parted for them unconsciously, like prey animals sensing a predator. "Do you have any idea who that was?" my supervisor whispered, gripping my arm. I shook my head. Alexander Vega, CEO of Vega Enterprises. He owns half the real estate in this city, including the Renaissance. Her eyes narrowed. "What did you do to catch his attention?" "Nothing," I said, still staring after his retreating form. "I spilled champagne on his shoes." She snorted. "Well, whatever you did, be careful. Men like that aren't used to hearing the word no." I nodded absently, already knowing I should decline, should stay away. Men who looked like him, who moved like him, who commanded rooms with silent authority. They were dangerous in ways I couldn't afford. Yet I couldn't stop staring at the elegant handkerchief wrapped around my palm. The delicate AV monogrammed in one corner now stained with my blood. Friday arrived with rain that turned the city into a watercolor painting, all blurred edges and muted colors. I'd spent the week convincing myself I wouldn't go, that it was ridiculous to even consider it. I had another catering shift anyway, money I desperately needed. But when I called in sick, my voice sounded foreign to my own ears. When I stood before my closet, examining the pitiful selection of worn clothes, I felt like a stranger in my own skin. The only decent dress I owned was a simple black one I'd worn to my mother's funeral 3 years ago. I paired it with the single piece of jewelry she'd left me, a delicate silver necklace with a tiny pearl pendant. My reflection in the cloudy mirror looked exactly like what I was, a working-class girl playing dress-up. At precisely 7:30, my buzzer rang. Not the car service I'd half expected, but a man in a suit stood at my door. Not Marco, but similar in build and watchful demeanor. "Miss Olivia, Mr. Vega sent me to escort you." I hesitated at my own threshold, one foot in my safe, familiar world, and one about to step into something unknown. "Is there a problem?" he asked when I didn't move. "No," I said, making a decision I couldn't explain even to myself. "No problem." The car waiting outside was a gleaming black Bentley, absurdly luxurious against the backdrop of my rundown neighborhood. Inside, the leather seats were butter soft, and the privacy partition was raised. I sat rigid, clutching my second-hand purse, watching raindrops race down tinted windows as we glided through the city toward downtown. The Renaissance Hotel loomed above the city skyline, all glass and golden light. The doorman bowed slightly as I was escorted through marble-floored lobbies toward a private elevator that required a keycard to operate. My escort swiped his card and pressed the button for the penthouse. "The dinner is being held in Mr. Vega's private residence," he explained, noticing my confusion. Alarm bells clanged in my head. Not a public charity dinner, but a private event? I should leave now. Make an excuse. Catch a bus home. Yet when the elevator doors opened directly into a stunning penthouse foyer, I stepped forward instead of back. The space was magnificent. Soaring ceilings, floor-to-ceiling windows showcasing the rainy city below, minimalist furniture that screamed money without trying. But most striking was the silence. No chatter of guests, no clink of glasses or background music. Just emptiness. "Where is everyone?" I asked, my voice small in the cavernous space. "Mr. Vega is on the terrace. He asked that you join him there." A glass door at the far end of the living room led to a covered terrace, protected from the rain but open to the night air, and there he was, leaning against the railing, staring out at his kingdom. He'd changed from a suit to dark trousers and a crisp white shirt, sleeves rolled up to expose strong forearms. A glass of amber liquid dangled from his fingers. He turned as I approached, and his eyes moved over me in a slow, deliberate assessment that made me feel both exposed and oddly powerful. "Olivia," he said, my name a caress in his mouth. "You came. You didn't give me much choice." The words slipped out before I could stop them. Instead of offense, amusement flickered across his face. "Everyone has choices." "Where are the other guests?" I asked, looking around the empty terrace. He took a step closer. There are no other guests. My heart skipped, then raced. I thought this was a charity dinner. I never said that. Another step. I said charity event. The event was last week. Tonight is just dinner. I should have been frightened. I should have turned and run, but something in his gaze held me there. A mixture of intensity and something else I couldn't name. That's deceptive, I said, surprised by my own boldness. Yes. No apology, no explanation. Just calm acknowledgement. Why am I here, Mr. Vega? Alexander, he corrected again. And you're here because I wanted to see you again. Because you interested me. Because I spilled champagne on your shoes. I meant it to sound light, but my voice trembled. He smiled then, a real smile that transformed his face from handsome to devastating. Because when everyone else in that room was trying desperately to be seen by me, you were trying not to be, because you have fire in your eyes even when you're afraid. And yes, he glanced down at my hand, where the cut was now just a thin red line. Because you spilled champagne on my shoes, and apologized like it was a cardinal sin. He moved to a table set for two, pulled out a chair. Have dinner with me, Olivia. Just dinner. Then if you want to leave, my driver will take you wherever you want to go. I should say no. Every instinct screamed it, but as the rain fell around us and the city lights blurred below, I found myself moving toward the chair, toward him. Just dinner, I agreed, letting him push in my chair. His hand brushed my shoulder as he moved away. A touch so light it might have been accidental, if not for the way his eyes darkened when I looked up at him. Just dinner, he echoed, but his voice held a promise that made me shiver. For now. And as he took his seat across from me, I had the distinct feeling I'd just made a deal whose terms I didn't fully understand. Dinner with Alexander Vega was unlike anything I'd experienced. Crystal glasses, silver cutlery that felt heavy in my hands, and food I couldn't pronounce served on china so delicate it seemed to float. But what struck me most was how carefully he watched me, how his eyes followed every movement as if cataloging my reactions for future reference. Tell me about yourself, Olivia, he said, pouring wine into my glass without asking if I wanted it. There's not much to tell, I answered, suddenly self-conscious of my ordinary life. I work 2 jobs. I rent a small apartment. I'm trying to put myself through community college. And your family? I hesitated, the familiar ache returning. My mother died 3 years ago, cancer. My father had a stroke last year. He's in a care facility now. Something shifted in Alexander's expression. A softening around the edges. That's why you work so hard. The medical bills. It wasn't a question. I wondered how much he already knew about me. Whether he'd had me investigated after our first meeting. The thought should have terrified me. Not everyone has a safety net, I said simply. He nodded, swirling the wine in his glass. I understand more than you might think. I wasn't born into this. He gestured to the luxury surrounding us. I built it. How? I asked, genuinely curious. A shadow crossed his face, one brick at a time, making choices others wouldn't, taking risks others feared. He leaned forward. Tell me, Olivia, what do you want from life? Not what you think you can have, what you truly want. The question caught me off guard. I'd spent so long in survival mode that dreams seemed like luxury items I couldn't afford. Security, I finally said. Enough money that I don't panic when an unexpected bill arrives. A degree. Maybe my own little business someday. Small dreams, he murmured, but not unkindly. Realistic ones, I countered. His lips curved. What if they didn't have to be realistic? What if you could dream bigger, reach higher? He reached across the table, his fingers brushing mine. What would you want then? The contact sent electricity up my arm. I don't play games I can't win, Mr. Vega. Alexander, he corrected automatically. And maybe you've never had the right teammate. There was something hypnotic about him, the intensity of his focus, the way he made me feel like the only person in the world. Warning bells rang distantly in my mind, but his gravity pulled stronger. After dinner, he led me to the edge of the terrace where the city sprawled below us like a carpet of stars. Beautiful, isn't it? He said, standing close enough that I could feel his heat. All those lights, all those lives. "Do you ever feel lonely up here?" I asked impulsively. "Above everyone else?" He turned to look at me, something unreadable in his expression. "Perceptive," he murmured. "Yes. The higher you climb, the thinner the air becomes. Fewer people can breathe at this altitude." "Is that why I'm here? You needed company?" His laugh was unexpected, deep and genuine. "You're not easily flattered, are you, Olivia?" "Good. I despise sycophants." He moved closer, one hand coming to rest at the small of my back. "You're here because you're different, because you look at me and see a man. Not a bank account or a stepping stone. You don't know what I see," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "Then tell me." His face was inches from mine now, his eyes holding me captive. "What do you see when you look at me, Olivia?" The truth tumbled out before I could stop it. Danger. Instead of being offended, he smiled, slow and predatory. "Smart girl." His hand moved from my back to my face, thumb brushing over my cheekbone. "You should be afraid. You should walk away right now." But he was leaning closer, and I wasn't moving. "Why?" I breathed. "Because you shouldn't flirt with dangerous men," he whispered, lips a breath away from mine. "And I am very, very dangerous." His kiss was gentle at first. A question. An opportunity to pull away. But when I didn't, something unleashed in him. His arms encircled me, pulling me against his chest as the kiss deepened, became hungry, demanding. My hands found their way to his shoulders, feeling the coiled strength beneath fine cotton. When he finally broke away, we were both breathing hard, and the look in his eyes made my knees weak. Possessive, triumphant, and still hungry. "I should go," I said, though everything in me wanted to stay. He nodded, though his arms didn't loosen. "If that's what you want." "It's what I should want." His smile was knowing. "But not what you do want." I pulled away reluctantly. "I barely know you." "Then know me," he said simply. "Have dinner with me again tomorrow night." It wasn't really a question, but this time I didn't mind. "All right," I agreed. "Tomorrow." As promised, his driver took me home. I sat in the back of that luxurious car, feeling like Cinderella returning from the ball, wondering if the magic would fade by morning. But when I reached into my purse for my keys, I found a small box I hadn't put there. Inside, nestled in black velvet, lay a delicate silver bracelet with a single charm, a tiny key. Beneath it, a card with elegant handwriting, "Until tomorrow." A sleep eluded me that night, my mind replaying every moment, every touch, every word. Who was Alexander Vega really? What did he want from me? And why did warnings feel so much like excitement when I thought of him? Morning brought no clarity, but it did bring reality crashing back. My phone rang with a call from my father's care facility, a billing issue that needed immediate attention. By afternoon, I was sitting across from the facility's administrator, being gently but firmly informed that they needed payment, or my father would have to be transferred to a state facility. "But I've been making the payments," I protested, panic rising. "I sent last month's check 2 weeks ago." The administrator's sympathetic expression didn't waver. "I'm sorry, Ms. Bennett, but we have no record of receiving it, and you're already behind from the previous quarter." My throat tightened. The state facilities were overcrowded, understaffed. My father needed consistent care, familiar faces. The move could devastate his already fragile condition. "How much?" I asked, my voice small. The number she quoted made my stomach drop. Even working both jobs, it would take months to come up with that kind of money. "I need some time," I said weakly. "I can give you 2 weeks," she replied. "But after that, we'll have to begin transfer procedures." I walked out into the sunshine, feeling numb. 2 weeks to come up with impossible money. I could try for another loan, but I was already drowning in debt. Maybe I could pick up a third job, though I was barely sleeping as it was. Lost in desperate calculations, I didn't notice the black car until it pulled alongside me. The window rolled down to reveal Marco, Alexander's bodyguard. "Miss Bennett," he nodded. "Mr. Vega sent me to collect you." I frowned. "Our dinner isn't until tonight. Mr. Vega thought you might appreciate a ride home. He saw you enter the care facility from his office." Marco gestured to a sleek skyscraper across the street. its upper floors gleaming in the afternoon sun. The coincidence, or was it surveillance, should have disturbed me. Instead, I felt a strange relief at not having to face my problems alone for a few more minutes. I slid into the back seat, expecting emptiness, but found Alexander himself waiting. He took one look at my face and frowned. What's wrong? I shouldn't tell him. It wasn't his problem, and I'd known him for all of one day. But something in his steady gaze broke my resolve. My father's care facility, I said, the words spilling out. They're saying they'll transfer him to a state facility if I don't pay the outstanding balance in 2 weeks. How much? He asked, echoing my earlier question. I named the sum, then added quickly, I'll figure it out. I always do. Alexander's expression remained neutral, but I saw something harden in his eyes. He pulled out his phone, typing rapidly. What are you doing? I asked. Solving the problem. He looked up. Give me the name of the facility. No, I said, surprising both of us. I appreciate it, but no, I can't accept that kind of money from someone I barely know. Can't. Or won't. His voice was soft but held an edge. Both, I said firmly. This is my responsibility. He studied me for a long moment, then tucked his phone away. I respect your independence, Olivia. It's admirable. Foolish, but admirable. It's not foolish to stand on my own feet. It is when you're drowning and refuse a lifeline. He leaned closer. But we'll find another way. We? His smile was enigmatic. I protect what's mine. The possessiveness in his voice should have sent me running. Instead, it sent heat coursing through me. I'm not yours, I said, but my protest sounded weak even to my own ears. No, he reached out, fingers brushing the silver bracelet I'd put on that morning. Yet here you are, wearing my gift, in my car, having accepted my invitation for tonight. What would you call it? I had no answer for him. Come, he said, changing the subject smoothly. I have something to show you before dinner. The car took us not to the hotel, but to an upscale office building downtown. Alexander guided me through a private entrance, his hand at the small of my back, both protective and possessive. Security guards nodded deferentially as we passed. In the elevator, he used a key to access the top floor. What is this place? I asked, as we stepped into a luxurious reception area with Vega Enterprises displayed prominently on the wall. My company headquarters, he replied, leading me through to a corner office with windows on 2 sides. The office was a study in understated power. Dark woods, leather furniture, and not a single personal photo. Just awards, business magazines with his face on the cover, and a few abstract sculptures that probably cost more than my entire life. Impressive, I said, taking it all in. What exactly does Vega Enterprises do? Property development, primarily, he answered, watching me explore. Hotels, luxury condominiums, commercial real estate. I acquire properties, renovate them, make them profitable. I trailed my fingers over his desk. And is that all? His eyebrow raised. What do you mean? There are rumors, I said carefully, about how you acquired some of those properties, about connections you might have. Alexander's expression didn't change, but something in his posture shifted, became more alert, more predatory. Do you believe everything you hear, Olivia? No, I said honestly. That's why I'm asking you directly. He moved closer, backing me against the desk until I could feel its edge pressing into my thighs. Brave girl, he murmured, bracing his hands on either side of me, caging me in. Business is complex. Sometimes opportunities arise through unconventional channels. Sometimes pressure must be applied to achieve desirable outcomes. That sounds like a carefully worded non-answer, I said, heart racing at his proximity. His laugh was low and appreciative. It is. He leaned closer, lips brushing my ear. Would the truth scare you away, I wonder? Try me, I challenged, though fear and something darker, more thrilling, coursed through me. His eyes held mine, searching. Then he straightened, stepping back slightly. Another time, he said. When you trust me more. How do you know I'll ever trust you? His smile was confident. Because I always get what I want, Olivia. And I want your trust, your loyalty. His gaze dropped to my lips, all of you. The intensity of his words left me breathless. Who was this man who spoke of possession as if it were his right, and why did part of me want to surrender to it? Come, he said, extending his hand. I have dinner reservations at a place I think you'll enjoy. As I placed my hand in his, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was stepping further into a beautiful cage. One I wasn't entirely sure I wanted to escape. The restaurant wasn't what I expected. Instead of another display of opulence, Alexander took me to a small Italian place tucked away on a side street. Family-owned, warm, with checkered tablecloths and wine bottles repurposed as candle holders. The owner greeted Alexander like an old friend, embracing him and speaking rapid Italian that made Alexander smile. You speak Italian? I asked as we were led to a corner table, private without being isolated. My mother was Italian, he answered, pulling out my chair. She taught me before she died. It was the first personal detail he'd offered freely, and I found myself hungry for more. When did she pass away? A shadow crossed his face. When I was 12. My father raised me after that. His tone suggested this wasn't a pleasant memory. Were you close to him? We had a complicated relationship. Alexander unfolded his napkin with precise movements. He taught me many things, though not always kindly. When he died 5 years ago, I inherited his business. Vega Enterprises? Something flickered in his eyes, among other ventures. Before I could press further, the owner returned with a bottle of wine, pouring without asking if we wanted it. No menus appeared. Apparently, Alexander had already arranged everything. Antonio's family has owned this restaurant for 3 generations, Alexander explained. His father gave mine his first job when we arrived in this country. I tried to picture Alexander as an immigrant child, but the image wouldn't form. He seemed so intrinsically powerful, as if he'd been born to command. You don't seem like someone who'd have humble beginnings, I said, before I could stop myself. Instead of offense, his expression showed appreciation. Most people are too intimidated to make such observations. I'm learning that I should be intimidated by you, but I'm not quite there yet. His smile was slow, dangerous. Let's hope you never get there. He leaned forward. I enjoy your honesty, Olivia. It's refreshing. The food arrived. Simple but exquisite dishes that weren't on any menu I could see. As we ate, Alexander asked about my studies, my dreams, my father's condition. He listened with genuine interest, occasionally offering insights that revealed a surprisingly deep understanding of medicine and elder care. You know a lot about stroke recovery, I observed. I make it my business to understand things that matter. His gaze held mine, and right now, what matters to your father matters to you. The implication was clear. What mattered to me now mattered to him. It was both flattering and unsettling, this intensity of focus after knowing me for so little time. As the evening progressed, I found myself relaxing, laughing at his dry humor, sharing stories I rarely told. It felt dangerously easy to be with him, like slipping into warm water without testing the depth first. Why me? I asked finally, the question that had been burning since he first approached me. You could have anyone. Why choose a struggling waitress with more problems than prospects? Alexander considered me over his wine glass. Do you know what I see when I look at you, Olivia? I shook my head. I see loyalty, the way you sacrifice for your father. I see determination, working multiple jobs while studying. I see beauty you don't even recognize. His voice deepened. And I see something untamed beneath your careful exterior. Something that matches what's in me. His words wrapped around me like silk ropes. And what's in you? Hunger, he said simply. For more than this world readily offers, the willingness to take it. A shiver ran through me. That sounds dangerous. It is. No denial, no softening of the truth. But danger and reward often walk hand in hand. After dinner, we strolled along the waterfront. The night was cool, and Alexander draped his jacket over my shoulders without asking. It carried his scent. That sandalwood cologne, and something uniquely him. I had them look into your father's situation, he said casually as we walked. I stopped short. What? When? This afternoon. While you were freshening up before dinner, anger flared. I told you not to. I didn't pay the bill, he interrupted, holding up a hand. I respected your wishes, but I did have my people investigate. His expression hardened. The facility has been overcharging you, Olivia, and that check you sent? It was received and cashed. Someone skimming. My anger transformed to shock. That's impossible. They're a reputable place. The administrator you spoke with today was hired 3 months ago. She has a history of similar behavior at other facilities, small enough amounts that desperate families pay rather than fight. How could you possibly know all this already? His smile was cold. I have resources, connections. What kind of connections uncover financial fraud in hours? I pulled away slightly, studying him. Who are you really, Alexander? He caught my hand, thumb tracing over my pulse point. I told you I was dangerous. That's not an answer. It's the only one you need right now. His eyes held mine, challenging. The question is whether you trust me to handle this for you. No money from me, just my intervention. The facility will discover their accounting error tomorrow. Your father will remain where he is, with the care he needs. I should have been appalled at his presumption, at the obvious display of power and control. Instead, relief washed through me, followed by gratitude so intense it frightened me. Why would you do this for me? He stepped closer, one hand coming up to cup my cheek. Because you're mine now, Olivia. Whether you've accepted it yet or not, and I protect what's mine. There it was again. That possessiveness that should send me running, but instead sent heat pooling low in my belly. His thumb brushed over my lower lip, and I found myself leaning into his touch, craving more. I should be scared of what you're saying, I whispered. But you're not, he observed, eyes darkening as he felt my quickened breath against his hand. No, I admitted. I'm not. His kiss was different this time, claiming, consuming. My back met the railing as he pressed against me, one arm circling my waist while his other hand tangled in my hair. I melted into him, all reason drowned by the heat of his mouth, the solid strength of his body against mine. When we broke apart, both breathing hard, something had shifted between us, a decision made without words. Come home with me, he said, his voice rough with desire. I hesitated only a moment before nodding. Yes. The drive back to his penthouse passed in a blur of anticipation and stolen kisses. In the elevator, he pressed me against the wall, his hands exploring with possessive intent that left me gasping. When the doors opened directly into his foyer, he lifted me effortlessly, carrying me through the dimly lit apartment to his bedroom. What followed was a night of passion, unlike anything I'd experienced. Alexander was both tender and demanding, attentive to every response, learning my body as if memorizing territory he intended to claim permanently. Afterward, as I lay in his arms, watching city lights through floor-to-ceiling windows, reality began to seep back in. What happens now? I asked, tracing patterns on his chest. Now you're mine, he answered simply, pressing a kiss to my forehead, and everything changes. That's not very specific, I murmured, even as warmth spread through me at his words. He chuckled, the sound vibrating under my ear. Tomorrow, your father's billing issue will be resolved. By the end of the week, the administrator who tried to defraud you will be looking for new employment. And you, he tilted my chin up to meet his gaze. You won't need to work those catering jobs anymore. I stiffened. I'm not looking for a sugar daddy, Alexander. Good, because I'm not offering to be one. His expression was serious now. I'm offering partnership, security, protection. In exchange for what? His smile was slow, sensual. Loyalty, discretion. Your presence in my life and my bed. It sounded archaic, possessive, controlling. It should have offended me. Instead, it offered a kind of clarity I hadn't realized I craved. I still want to finish my degree, I said, testing boundaries. Of course. I admire ambition. He traced my collarbone with one finger. But you'll move in here. The commute from your apartment is impractical. I sat up, clutching the sheet to my chest. Move in? Alexander, We've known each other for 2 days, and yet here you are in my bed." His expression was unapologetic. "I know what I want, Olivia. I don't waste time once I've decided." "And what if I need more time?" He considered this, then nodded once. "A week. Take a week to consider. But during that time, stay here with me. See what life could be like." It was still moving impossibly fast, but something in me responded to his certainty, his clear vision of what he wanted. And truthfully, the thought of returning to my dingy apartment, my exhausting routine, felt suddenly unbearable. "All right," I agreed, 1 week. He pulled me back into his arms, satisfaction evident in every line of his body. "You won't regret it." The week that followed was surreal. As promised, the care facility called to apologize for their accounting error, assuring me that my father's place was secure and previous payments had been properly credited. Alexander's driver took me to my apartment to collect clothes and essentials, though Alexander insisted on ordering an entire new wardrobe that began arriving in boxes the very next day. I tried to maintain some independence, still attending my classes, visiting my father daily, but Alexander's world was seductive. The luxury, the ease, the way doors opened and problems dissolved with a single call from him. On the 3rd day, I returned from class to find a strange man in expensive Italian leather shoes waiting in the penthouse living room. He stood when I entered, eyes assessing me coldly. "You must be Olivia," he said, his accent vaguely Eastern European. Alexander's new friend. Something about his tone made my skin crawl. "And you are?" "Nikolai Petrov." He didn't offer his hand. "I work with Alexander on certain business matters." Before I could respond, Alexander emerged from his office, his expression darkening when he saw us together. "Nikolai," he said, voice deceptively calm. "I believe our meeting was finished. Just introducing myself to your lovely companion." Nikolai's smile didn't reach his eyes. "Ensuring she understands the particular nature of your business." Alexander moved to my side, arm sliding possessively around my waist. "Olivia is not your concern. Everything that touches the organization is my concern," Nikolai replied, the pretense of pleasantry dropping. "Especially potential vulnerabilities." I felt Alexander tense beside me. "Careful, Nikolai. You're overstepping." The air crackled with tension. Nikolai glanced between us, then shrugged elegantly. "Just looking out for our mutual interest, brother. Family first, yes? Brother?" I looked at Alexander in confusion, but his expression revealed nothing. "We'll continue this discussion later," Alexander said, in private. Nikolai inclined his head slightly, then turned to me. "Lovely to meet you, Olivia. I'm sure we'll be seeing more of each other." His smile sent ice down my spine. "Welcome to the family." As he left, Alexander's grip on me tightened almost painfully. "What was that about?" I asked once the elevator doors closed. "He called you brother. Is he your family?" Alexander's jaw tightened, not by blood, by business. He turned to me, expression inscrutable. "There are aspects of my life I haven't shared with you yet, Olivia. Complications." "What kind of complications?" He hesitated, something I'd never seen him do before, the kind that make relationships difficult. Fear mingled with curiosity. "Are you married? Is that it?" He actually laughed, though the sound held little humor. "No, nothing like that. I'm talking about my business interests. They're more diverse than I initially explained." I remembered my earlier suspicions, the rumors I'd heard. "You're not just a CEO, are you?" His eyes held mine for a long moment. "No," he finally said. "I'm not." Alexander led me to the sofa, his movements measured and controlled. I could feel tension radiating from him as we sat, a careful distance between us. "My father was Salvatore Vega," he began, watching my face closely. "Does that name mean anything to you?" I shook my head. "He came to this country from Sicily in the 1970s. He started with nothing, working in restaurants like Antonio's. But he had ambitions." Alexander's voice took on a different quality, harder and more distant. "By the time I was born, he had established himself as the head of one of the most powerful crime families on the East Coast." My breath caught. Crime family. The words hung in the air between us, confirming suspicions I'd tried to ignore. "You're in the Mafia," I said, the words sounding surreal even as I spoke them. I inherited my father's organization, yes, he answered with disturbing calm. The legitimate businesses, the hotels, the real estate, they're all real. But they're only part of what I control. I should have been running for the door. Instead, I found myself asking, what's the rest? Protection rackets, gambling, some controlled substances. His eyes never left mine. I've moved us away from the more violent enterprises my father favored. Modernized operations. But at its core, it's still what it's always been, a family that operates outside conventional law. And Nikolai, my father's right-hand man, had a son. We were raised together after my mother died. He expects to inherit everything if I don't produce an heir. Alexander's smile was cold. He's ambitious, impatient. My mind raced, connecting dots I'd previously ignored. The bodyguards, the way people deferred to him, the mysterious connections that uncovered fraud in hours, the care facility administrator. I said slowly, what's going to happen to her? Nothing permanent, Alexander assured me too quickly. She'll be encouraged to resign, find employment far from here. The casual way he spoke of manipulating someone's life sent a chill through me. Have you hurt people, Alexander? He considered the question carefully. I've done what was necessary to protect what's mine. Sometimes that has required decisive action, a diplomatic answer that told me everything I needed to know. Why are you telling me this now? I asked, voice barely above a whisper. Because Nikolai is right about one thing. You need to understand what you're getting into. Alexander moved closer, taking my hands in his. I want you, Olivia. Not just for now, but permanently. But I won't trap you in a life you don't choose with full knowledge. The gesture was oddly honorable for a man who'd just confessed to leading a criminal organization. I pulled my hands away, standing to put distance between us. You're a criminal, I said, the reality finally settling in. Everything you have, this penthouse, the cars, the power, it's all built on illegal activities. Some illegal, some legal, he corrected, remaining seated. The lines blur when you have enough influence. That doesn't make it right. No, he agreed surprisingly. But it makes it real. This is who I am, Olivia, the man who kissed you, who held you last night, and the man who leads an organization that operates in shadows. I wrapped my arms around myself, trying to think clearly. Everything in me said to leave now, to run back to my safe, struggling life. But another part, a part I barely recognized, was drawn to his raw honesty, to the power he wielded so effortlessly. If I stay, I said slowly. What would that mean? For me? For us? Hope flickered in his eyes. It would mean security, real security. Not just financial, but physical. No one would dare touch what belongs to Alexander Vega. He stood, approaching me cautiously like I was a wild animal that might bolt. It would mean luxury, yes, but also purpose. You could finish your degree, start that business you dreamed of. I would give you everything, in exchange for being yours. I echoed his earlier words. Yes. No pretense, no sugarcoating. My companion. Eventually, perhaps more. Your wife? I couldn't keep the surprise from my voice. His smile was grim. In our world, family matters, bloodlines matter, and heir matters. The casual mention of children, our children, stole my breath. This is insane. We barely know each other. I know everything I need to know about you. He was closer now, his scent enveloping me. Your loyalty, your strength, your fire. You don't know if I can live with what you do, with what you are. He touched my face gently. That's for you to decide, now that you know. I should have pulled away, should have gathered my meager belongings and left. Instead, I found myself leaning into his touch, craving the certainty he offered in a world that had given me nothing but struggle. I need time, I whispered. To think. Of course. He pressed a kiss to my forehead. Take all the time you need. I'll have Marco drive you home. Home. My dingy apartment suddenly seemed like a distant memory, rather than the place I'd lived for years. I'll stay tonight, I decided, and think about everything. Tomorrow I'll give you my answer. Relief washed over his features. Thank you. He pulled me into his arms, and despite everything, I felt safe there. Whatever you decide, know that these days with you have been extraordinary. That night, we didn't make love. Instead, Alexander held me as I stared at the ceiling, my mind turning over impossible choices. By morning, exhaustion had claimed me, and I woke to an empty bed and a note on the pillow. Business meeting. Back this afternoon. Whatever you decide, the car is yours to use. Beside the note lay a small box containing a key fob with the Bentley's logo. I spent the morning in a daze, wandering the penthouse, trying to imagine a life here, a life with him. A life connected, however peripherally, to criminal enterprises. Could I justify it? Could I live with myself? Around noon, I used the key fob to have the driver take me to visit my father. The facility staff were almost comically deferential now, the administrator nowhere to be seen. My father seemed better today, more alert. Even remembering my name, a good day in the unpredictable journey of stroke recovery. "Who's that?" he asked when Marco appeared at the door, indicating it was time to leave. "Just a friend, Dad," I said, kissing his forehead. His eyes, cloudy but still perceptive, studied me. Different clothes. Nice clothes. He reached out, touching the silk blouse I hadn't been able to afford a week ago. Someone taking care of my girl? The simple question brought tears to my eyes. For so long, I'd been the one taking care of everyone else. "Maybe, Dad," I whispered. "Maybe." On the drive back, I made a decision. I would tell Alexander I needed more time, weeks, not days, to consider a future with him. I would move back to my apartment but continue seeing him, testing whether this intense connection could survive outside the bubble of his luxurious world. But when the elevator doors opened onto the penthouse, all plans evaporated at the sight before me. Alexander stood in the center of the living room, blood splattered across his white shirt, a cut above his eye still oozing. 3 of his men moved around the space, one speaking urgently into a phone, another securing the terrace doors, a third checking what looked disturbingly like a weapon. Alexander's eyes met mine, and for a brief moment, I saw something like regret flash across his features before the mask of control returned. "Olivia," he said, moving toward me. "You're back earlier than I expected." I backed away, eyes fixed on the blood. "What happened?" "Business," he said simply. "A disagreement that became physical. Is that your blood?" My voice sounded strange to my own ears. "Some of it." "And the rest?" His expression hardened. The man who thought he could threaten what's mine. Fear and revulsion washed through me. This was the reality of his world. Not just power and luxury, but violence and blood. "I can't do this," I said, the words tumbling out. "This isn't who I am, Alexander. I can't be part of this." Something dangerous flickered in his eyes. "You're upset. Understandable. Let me clean up and we'll talk." "No." I shook my head, backing toward the elevator. "I'm leaving. Now." He moved with surprising speed, placing himself between me and the exit. "Olivia, listen to me. What you saw, this isn't typical. There are aspects of my business that sometimes require force, yes. But this isn't your concern, your world. But it's yours," I countered. "And if I'm with you, it becomes mine too." Tears threatened, but I blinked them back. I thought I could compartmentalize, separate the man I was falling for from what he does. But I can't. Pain crossed his features, so raw and genuine it nearly broke my resolve. "Don't make a permanent decision in a moment of shock," he said quietly. "Give it time. Give us time." "I need to go home." I tried to move past him. His hand caught my arm, not roughly, but firmly. "The man who threatened me today did so because of you." I froze. "What?" "Nikolai has been spreading rumors that I've become weak, distracted, because of you." Alexander's grip tightened slightly. "He's organizing against me. If you leave now, it validates his claims. So I'm supposed to stay to protect your reputation?" Anger cut through my fear. "As what? Your possession?" "As my choice," he corrected, his voice low and intense. "As the woman I've chosen above all others. You don't even know me. I know enough." His free hand came up to cup my face. I know you're loyal and fierce and braver than you realize. I know you've shouldered burdens alone that would crush most people, and I know that when I'm with you, I feel something I've never felt with anyone else." His words wrapped around me like silk chains, seductive in their intensity. For a moment I wavered. "I can't," I whispered. "Not like this." Something shifted in his expression. A hardening, a decision made. "I understand." He released me, stepping back. "Marco will drive you home." The sudden capitulation surprised me. "Just like that?" "I told you I wouldn't trap you in a life you don't choose." His voice was controlled again, distant. "I'm a man of my word." Relief mingled with an unexpected sense of loss. I nodded, unable to speak past the lump in my throat. "Your father's care is secured for the next year," he continued in that same detached tone. "Consider it a parting gift. No strings attached." Tears spilled over at that. Even now, he was thinking of my needs, my burdens. "Thank you," I managed. "One last thing." He moved to his desk, wrote something on a card, and extended it to me. "If you ever need me, for anything, call this number. Day or night." I took the card, our fingers brushing. The contact sent the same electricity through me it had from the first moment, undiminished by all that had happened. "Goodbye, Alexander," I said softly. His eyes held mine, burning with emotions too complex to name. "For now," he replied, and it sounded like both a concession and a promise. As the elevator doors closed between us, I felt as though I was leaving a part of myself behind. A part I hadn't known existed until Alexander Vega awoke it. A part drawn to power and darkness, and the dangerous certainty he embodied. I told myself it was for the best, that I was choosing safety, morality, a normal life. But as Marco drove me back to my small apartment, back to my struggle and solitude, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was running from the most real thing I'd ever experienced. 3 weeks passed like a strange dream. I returned to my life, work, classes, hospital visits, but everything felt hollow, as if I were moving through a parallel universe where colors were dimmer and sounds muted. The only evidence that my time with Alexander hadn't been pure fantasy was the silver bracelet I couldn't bring myself to remove, and the card with his number that I kept in my wallet, but never called. True to his word, my father's care was secured. The new administrator was professional and kind, never mentioning the accounting errors of her predecessor. I wondered sometimes what had happened to the woman who tried to defraud us, but then decided some questions were better left unanswered. My catering job took me back without comment, though I noticed I was never assigned to high-profile events anymore. Alexander's influence, no doubt, keeping me away from his world even as I'd removed myself from it. The thought brought both relief and a peculiar ache. I threw myself into my studies, working double shifts to make up for lost time. If I exhausted myself enough, I didn't dream of him at night. Didn't remember the feel of his hands, the intensity of his gaze, the impossible safety I'd felt in his arms despite knowing exactly what he was. Then came the night that changed everything. I was closing up the small cafe where I worked morning shifts, alone after my coworker called in sick. The street was quiet, streetlights casting long shadows as I locked the door. I sensed them before I saw them. 3 men emerging from the darkness, spreading out to cut off any escape route. "Olivia Bennett?" The one in the center spoke, his accent similar to Nikolai's. "We have a message for Alexander Vega." Fear froze me in place as I realized what was happening. I don't have anything to do with Alexander Vega anymore. The man smiled coldly. "That's not what our information suggests. He's been having you watched, still cares what happens to his little pet." He stepped closer. "Which makes you useful." I backed away, fumbling for my phone. "I'll call the police." They laughed, the sound chilling in the empty street. "By all means. If they arrive quickly, perhaps they'll find your body before it gets too cold." My back hit the wall of the building. There was nowhere to run. No one to hear if I screamed. In desperation, I reached into my bag, bypassing my phone for the card I'd carried for weeks. As they advanced, I pressed the number with trembling fingers. It rang once before connecting. "Olivia." Alexander's voice, tense and alert despite the late hour. "Alexander," I gasped. "There are men." "Where are you?" The question was sharp, urgent. "Outside the cafe. 3 men. They said, 'Don't move, don't engage.'" His voice was deadly calm now. "Help is 4 minutes away. Keep the line open." The men had stopped advancing, uncertainty crossing their faces as they realized who I was calling. "You think he'll get here in time?" The leader sneered, but I could see doubt in his eyes. "Nikolai said you were his weakness. Let's find out if he's right." He lunged forward, grabbing for me. I screamed, dropping the phone as I fought against his grip. The sound of tires screeching cut through the night, headlights flooding the street as a black SUV careened around the corner. Everything happened so quickly after that. Men poured from the vehicle, Alexander's men, moving with military precision. The 3 attackers didn't even have time to draw weapons before they were subdued, forced to their knees on the pavement, and then Alexander himself emerged from the SUV, his face a mask of cold fury that transformed his handsome features into something almost inhuman. He strode directly to me, ignoring the captives, his hands running over my arms, my face. "Are you hurt?" His voice was rough with emotion. I shook my head, still trembling with fear and adrenaline. "No. They didn't have time." Relief washed over his features, immediately replaced by rage as he turned to the kneeling men. He approached the leader, who now looked terrified. "Nikolai sent you?" It wasn't really a question. The man nodded jerkily, just to scare her, to send a message. Alexander's fist connected with the man's jaw, the crack audible in the quiet street. "Consider this my reply." He straightened, addressing one of his men. "Take them to the warehouse. I'll deal with them later." The calm way he said it sent ice through my veins. These men would die tonight because of me. "Alexander," I said, finding my voice, "don't." He turned, surprise evident on his face. "Don't kill them," I clarified, scarcely believing I was saying the words. That's not who I want you to be." Something complex moved across his features. Anger, confusion, and something like hope. "They would have hurt you, Olivia. Killed you to get to me." "I know." I stepped closer, placing a hand on his arm. "But if you kill them, Nikolai wins. He proves you're exactly what he says you are. Ruled by emotion. Compromised." Alexander studied me for a long moment, then nodded sharply to his lieutenant. "Change of plans. Deliver them back to Nikolai. Alive but instructed. Make sure he understands the consequences if he ever comes near what's mine again." The men were bundled into a second vehicle that had arrived silently during our exchange. As it pulled away, Alexander's attention returned fully to me, his hands framing my face. "You called me," he said, something like wonder in his voice. "I didn't know what else to do." "You could have called the police." I shook my head. "They wouldn't have made it in time, and they wouldn't have understood who sent them. Why they were here. Because of me." Self-recrimination darkened his expression. "Because I couldn't let you go completely. Couldn't stop watching over you even from a distance. You've been having me followed?" I should have been angry, but all I felt was a strange, twisted comfort. "Protected," he corrected. "From a distance. Respectfully." We stood in silence for a moment, the night air cool against my heated skin. Then Alexander seemed to make a decision. "Come with me," he said, gesturing to the waiting SUV. "Just to talk. I'll have you brought home afterward if that's what you want." I hesitated only briefly before nodding. After what had just happened, my apartment no longer felt safe. Nothing felt safe except the man standing before me. The dangerous man who commanded violence with a gesture, but stopped it at my request. The ride to his penthouse passed in silence, his hand holding mine as if afraid I might disappear. When we arrived, everything was exactly as I remembered. The sleek furniture, the panoramic windows, the sense of rarefied air, but Alexander himself seemed different. Less controlled, more vulnerable than I'd ever seen him. "What happened tonight changes things," he said once we were seated in his living room, drinks untouched between us. "Nikolai has crossed a line. There will be consequences." "A war?" I asked. the word strange on my tongue. A correction, he replied grimly, but that's not what I want to discuss right now. He leaned forward, eyes intense. These weeks without you have been enlightening. How so? I've built my life on control, Olivia. Control of my organization, my emotions, my environment. And then you walked into it, and suddenly control seemed insufficient. He ran a hand through his hair, the gesture surprisingly human. I missed you. Not as a possession or a symbol, but as the woman who challenges me, who sees me clearly and still doesn't flinch. My heart beat faster. I left because I saw too clearly. You left because I showed you the darkest parts first, because I was arrogant enough to believe you could accept everything at once. He reached for my hands. I don't regret being honest with you, but I regret not giving you time to know all sides of me before confronting the worst. And what are the other sides? I asked softly. The man who reads poetry in Italian before sleep, who visits his mother's grave every month with white lilies, who's built children's hospitals with money earned legally, specifically to atone for the other things I've done. His grip tightened. The man who hasn't slept properly since you walked out of his life. His raw honesty disarmed me. Alexander, I'm not asking you to decide anything tonight, he interrupted. What happened was traumatic. You need time. But I am asking for another chance, a slower chance, to show you who I am beyond the blood and power. And your business? I couldn't help asking. The illegal parts? He considered this seriously. I've been transitioning operations toward legitimate enterprises for years. It could be accelerated. Some aspects eliminated entirely. He met my gaze directly. I can't promise to become something I'm not overnight. But I can promise to try to become someone worthy of you. The offer hung between us, not just his heart, but a willingness to change the very foundations of his life, for me. I don't know if it's possible, I said honestly, to separate the man from what he does. It isn't, he agreed surprisingly. But people evolve, Olivia. Organizations transform. I've done it before. When I took over from my father, I eliminated the more violent aspects of our operations, human trafficking, drugs. Those were his methods, not mine. He leaned closer. Give me the chance to evolve again, with you as my compass. It was dangerously tempting, not just the luxury and security he offered, but the raw devotion, the sense that this powerful, dangerous man would reshape his world for me. I need time, I said finally. Real time. Not days, but months. He nodded, relief evident. It wasn't a rejection. However long you need. And space, I continued. I can't live here while I decide. I need to stand on my own feet, make my own way. Your safety can be assured without smothering me. I finished firmly. I'm not naive anymore, Alexander. I understand the risks, but I won't live in a cage, even a gilded one. He considered this, clearly struggling with the concession. A compromise, then. Your own apartment, but in a building I own. Security in the lobby, but no visible guards following you. You live your life, make your own decisions, and we date. Like normal people. The idea of Alexander Vega doing anything like normal people almost made me smile. And your business? Will continue its transition to legitimate enterprises. You'll see the progress yourself. His eyes held mine. I meant what I said, Olivia. You make me want to be better. A better man. A better leader. Perhaps even a better husband and father someday. The casual mention of our potential future sent warmth spreading through me despite my reservations. I found myself nodding. All right. We try. Slowly. His smile transformed his face, boyish relief replacing the hardened crime boss. He reached for me, and I went willingly into his arms, feeling that same impossible sense of homecoming I'd been missing for weeks. I have one condition, I murmured against his chest. Anything. No more blood on your shirts, at least not where I can see it. His laugh vibrated through me. I'll do my best. He pulled back to look into my eyes, suddenly serious again. Thank you for calling me tonight, for trusting me with your life. Thank you for coming, I replied simply, for being exactly who I needed you to be. We stayed like that, holding each other as the city glittered below us. I had no illusions that the path forward would be simple or without compromise. Alexander Vega was still a dangerous man with a dangerous empire, but he was also a man willing to change, to evolve, to become something new for love. And I was a woman strong enough to guide that evolution while maintaining my own principles, strong enough to love the complexity of him, the darkness and the light. As his lips found mine, sealing our new beginning with a kiss that held both passion and promise, I knew that whatever came next would be extraordinary, difficult, complicated, sometimes frightening, but never ordinary, never half-lived. "You shouldn't flirt with dangerous men," he whispered against my lips, echoing his words from that first night. I smiled, tangling my fingers in his hair. "Too late for that warning, don't you think?" His answering smile was both tender and predatory. "Much too late. You're already mine." And as I surrendered to his kiss, I realized a fundamental truth. He was also mine. The Mafia boss, the businessman, the lover, the protector. All of him, for better or worse. And somehow, against all odds and wisdom, that felt exactly right.